That was one of the biggest shocks I have seen in a very, very long time. Not for the reasons you might think, though, because I'm not that shocked that Daniel Dubois won that fight, but there's something else, and I'm going to get into it in this video, guys. So stick around with me till the end as we get into 6 things we learned. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to A Guy Called Henry. Guys, I am fresh off the back of Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois, and I am still absolutely reeling. I'm absolutely gassed from that electric performance from Daniel Dubois. I mean, oh, guys, there's so much to say about this. You know, before the fight, nearly everybody, 95% of people were picking Anthony Joshua to win. I think the pre-fight poll on DAZN, I think it was 85% of people had Joshua winning that fight by knockout. I predicted Joshua to win by knockout. All of my pre-fight analysis was around Daniel Dubois' defensive flaws, his weaknesses, and the fact that I felt AJ would just land on him at some point, and the fact that AJ was reinvented and reinvigorated under Ben Davison. And boy, am I wrong on so many levels. And I never have an issue holding my hands up and saying that I'm wrong. You know, I never thought that it was inconceivable Daniel Dubois could win this fight, but to do it in the fashion that he did, completely emphatic, Joshua offered virtually nothing. Absolutely incredible. Guys, this is 6 things we learned. So in this video, the way it works is I give you 6 things I learned from this fight. I'm going to have 6 boxes here along the bottom, and each box is going to have a red, a green, or an orange box, and I'm going to grade each of these things against that box. So I'm going to get straight into this, guys. Before I get into it, please bang a like on the video. Please subscribe to my channel, A Guy Called Henry. We are taking off here. We've had a couple thousand subscribers in the last couple of weeks. So very, very exciting. Last couple of months, I should say. So very, very exciting stuff. And yeah, please comment on the video. Were you shocked by this outcome? Were you shocked by the result of this fight? Where does AJ go from here? Where does Dubois go from here? Get your thoughts in the comment section below. Box number 1, guys, and it's a red box for Anthony Joshua's performance and his decline in general. I can't believe the man that I just saw in that ring. I am totally surprised. And don't worry, I will be giving Daniel Dubois his full credit for that performance. But I am absolutely shocked by the Anthony Joshua I saw in the ring there. The thing that shocked me the most, guys, was how low he held his guard and how bad his punch resistance was. You know, the first moment Daniel Dubois really touched him in that fight with a big right hand, he went straight down. It was a lunging, it was a good shot. You know, AJ, just, his guard was so low, and I'm absolutely shocked. I'm absolutely shocked that that AJ was not able to block at least some of Dubois' punches, because off the bat, Dubois came out, guys, and he was just landing these clean jabs on AJ's face. And AJ's guard just completely non-existent. His punch resistance, completely non-existent. And I just wonder if he's had too many wars in the ring, but also in sparring. And he's at the point now where he's declined. I remember him saying he's sparring now more than ever. Potentially, he left a little bit of himself in training camp. He looked gassed early. And I'm just completely shocked by what I saw as a shell of a man in there. And, you know, we'll talk about it, but we have to discuss what's next for Anthony Joshua after such an emphatic loss. It really was a terrible loss for Anthony Joshua. And I don't really know where it leaves him. As I say, we'll talk about that towards the end of this video. Box number 2, it's a big fat green box for Daniel Dubois' footwork. Absolutely brilliant, guys. You know, the speed that he was able to move in and out of range, very, very bouncy on the balls of his feet. It was absolutely brilliant. Fantastic footwork from Daniel Dubois. And it was something that I highlighted before the fight in my tactical analysis video, and I made it into a short as well if you saw it. One of the lesser performing shorts, because it seemed like an innocuous thing to talk about, but it's actually absolutely key to Daniel Dubois winning this fight. And it's this thing he can do where he goes into this mode of bouncing on his feet, bouncing out of range with quick feet. It's something that he does very, very well. And, you know, when Dubois gets hit typically, and when he's less effective, is when he sits in front of his man in the pocket and he just sits there, because his guard is very, very leaky. He doesn't have a good guard. But what he does have is quick feet when he uses them. And you saw it in the Hrgović fight. When he started to have more success and when he was actually able to defend effectively against Hrgović, he moved in and out of range very, very quickly. Used those quick bouncy feet, went into that mode, and was able to land even counter punches in that mode of attack. So you saw from the off here, he was in that mode. He threw a little feint here and there, and straight away, quickly closing the gap on Joshua and throwing a jab. And it was actually Hatman who I saw call this out just the eve before the fight. He said in the public workout, he saw the quickness of Dubois' foot speed, and he said, you know what? I still think Joshua's going to win, but there's a very real possibility that Dubois will knock him out, because the speed at which he can close the gap is crucial. And I said before, the way that Dubois wins this fight is by keeping his lead foot close to Joshua's, being in range to punch, giving Joshua no space to counterpunch. And that is exactly what he did, guys. Now, he did it in a way that I didn't quite anticipate. I thought he would have the front foot closer for longer than he did. But the way he just took the range away from Joshua constantly, used that to defend Joshua's shots that Joshua was trying to throw, was really impressive. Not just that, but the way that Dubois got his head off the center line, and when Joshua was trying to throw those counter right hands, Dubois had prepared. He knew that Joshua was going to be looking to counter over his jab, and Dubois was getting his head down and dipping out of the way. And actually, I just thought overall, Dubois' defense was much improved in this fight, but it all came down to those quick feet, that fast footwork, and being able to move in and out of range super effectively. But what he did really well, in particular with that footwork, was he just didn't give Joshua room to counter a lot of the time. And Joshua, as I say, that speed of footwork mixed in with AJ's inability to get his hands up and actually use a high guard, which I'm just so shocked by. I can't believe AJ would have such a low guard in a fight like that, where there's such jeopardy. Absolutely shocking to me, really, really surprising. And yeah, I just can't quite believe it, to be honest with you. Box number 3 is a green box, again, for the Dubois left hook. Absolutely devastating in this fight, guys. Before the fight, a lot was made of his jab and his power jab and how that's his hardest punch. But Shane McGuigan, his former coach, who I hold in the highest regard, said before the fight, Daniel Dubois' left hook is his best punch. It's very sneaky. It's very sharp. And Daniel Dubois landed some really powerful, clean left hooks in this fight. He also landed the right hand, and I should mention that right hand and the power that he held in that right hand. The first knockdown came from that right hand, but it was the sneaky left hooks inside when he was in Joshua's space that I think did a lot of the damage. And it was, again, a right hand that finished it when AJ finally found a second win, a second moment. He went for it in round 5, landed 2 big right hands on Dubois. He thought, you know what, here's my moment, I'm going to finish it. But he rushed his work. And Dubois clipped him. He caught Joshua while Joshua was throwing. And Dubois' overall resilience, his chin, his toughness was just levels above AJ's in there. So even when AJ was pouring on and hitting Dubois with big, powerful punches, Dubois was able to take it. And Dubois showed a good chin himself. A lot of heavyweights, a lot of fighters would not be able to withstand those. But again, it was the footwork, it was the chin. Dubois was able to take himself out of range as he was being hit with those big right hands. Whereas AJ, his timing and distance was all off, and he was just stepping right into those shots from Dubois. And so that left hook was a hugely effective punch in this fight for Daniel Dubois, and it's something we've seen with him before. He throws a beautiful left hook. It's a very flowing, very natural shot, lots and lots of power on it, and it's just one of those shots where it seems like it's kind of like naturally his best punch. It's not something he's had to work on too much. It's something that he just throws with great speed, great power. And yeah, it had AJ on ice in this fight. And I think, Dubois, we don't even need to talk about roughhouse tactics, which I'm delighted about. There was a couple of moments early on, he did try and put his head in. The referee quickly stopped it. There was a couple of moments where he used his forearm. Again, in moments, referee warned him a little bit. We don't need to talk about that here, guys. We can just talk about Daniel Dubois' boxing brilliance in this fight because it was a fantastic performance. I started with the first box being AJ's decline, but the reality is that Dubois' performance was absolutely on point. He didn't give Joshua any chances really to take the fight away from him. He just grabbed it by the scruff of the neck. He went out there and he was so determined, and it was just absolutely brilliant to see. Box number 4, it's another green box for Daniel Dubois' jab. There's a number of things I could have put in this box. I could have put his gas tank, his stamina, because he set a really high pace that just took it away from Joshua. His overall tactics were absolutely on point. He showed great intelligence in there. He made sure that the Joshua right hand on the counter was ineffective. I mentioned all this already, but for me, the Dubois jab, really good. From the off, landing it clean, and throughout the fight, just landing clean jabs on Anthony Joshua. Really surprising how easily he landed that shot. I couldn't quite believe it, how easy it was for him to land that punch. It was truly exceptional, the Dubois jab, and it's a punch that's been talked about a lot, and I've described it myself where, because he stands quite square, Dubois, when he boxes, the jab is often a bit further away for him. So that's why it's got more power on it, because he gets more rotation in it. But at the same time, it's usually a bit more readable, a bit more predictable. But here, because of the foot speed, he was able to land it really easily and comfortably on Joshua. So that punch was absolutely key in setting up the knockdowns. It was key in making Joshua really, really reluctant, because the thing we all talked about before the fight was AJ's got to put a dent in him so that he can't just pour forward early. It's something that you talk about in most fights. You've got to hurt the man early. You've got to give them problems. You've got to give them something to think about and make them apprehensive to come in. Dubois was not apprehensive to come in. Joshua couldn't find his range, couldn't find his timing. And that is something that starts to go when you're on the slide, when you're on the decline. We'll talk about that more in a minute. Box number 5, and it is a green box for what is next for Daniel Dubois. I'm also going to talk here a little bit about what is next for Anthony Joshua. But Daniel Dubois now, the world is his oyster. He's a 26-year-old heavyweight, guys, who is now a bona fide IBF world champion. He's beaten a legitimate contender in Anthony Joshua, no longer a paper champion. He's not just been elevated, he's gone in the ring, and he's won a fight whilst holding that title. So he's now, for me, bona fide IBF world champion. I understand the circumstances in which Usyk was stripped. You'd say Usyk's the real champion of the division. He's the unified champion. But Dubois is deserving, in my opinion, of that IBF belt. And I know a lot of you won't like that because, you'd say, well, Usyk is the IBF champion. He never lost it in the ring. I do agree with that. But I think with a performance like that, in a fight of that profile against someone like Anthony Joshua, that is deserving of being called a world champion. And I think that kind of leads into our question of what is next for AJ. We'll talk about what's next for Dubois in a minute, but what is next for AJ? For me, I think it's time to retire. And I say that with a heavy heart. I say that with sadness because he's been absolutely incredible for British boxing. What he has done for the sport has been amazing. He's had huge performances. Even recently, he's looked very, very good against lower level opposition. But now we see what's left. And the reality is not that much. And he might think, I got caught cold. I wasn't right. It was a bad performance. All those things might be true. But I think that the reason I say this is because his punch resistance has definitely declined. I've seen AJ hit with shots like that before and not go down. And he just didn't look sharp. He looked lethargic. He looked tired when he got in there. His timing was all off. He looked sloppy. It's not the AJ I'm used to seeing. His hands were low. It just looked weird. He looked weird. Maybe he overcooked himself in camp. That is entirely possible. But given how confident he was going into it, I'm guessing he was sparring relatively well and stuff. So it's confusing to me whether there was something wrong with him. I don't know. He might try and have another one because you might be able to say there was problems in camp. You might try and throw doubt on the performance. You might try and make people question whether or not, there was just something weird about him that night. I don't know if there's a rematch clause. There might be. Although I doubt it, given AJ was the challenger. But what's next for AJ? And what's next for AJ for me? Mate, you've had a brilliant, long career. You've been a fantastic champion. You've achieved everything you ever could have imagined of. You've made lots of money. Even without that Fury fight, you've made fantastic fortunes. If you want to get back in the mix and be a contender, I respect that if that's what you'd like to do. If you want to see if you've got a bit more left in the tank. But I just don't think there's any coming back from that. And he looked like he was massively on the slide to me, massively on the decline. I really want to make it clear, guys, I don't want to downplay Daniel Dubois' performance because I think it was absolutely brilliant. It was destructive. The power he showed, the speed he showed, the timing he showed, everything was there. I really don't want to belittle what Daniel Dubois was able to do, but I also saw a fighter on the slide in AJ. I think Dubois caught him at the perfect moment. It was the right time. And all the things we said before the fight, mentally, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, Dubois went in there and he put in a fantastic performance. Even when he slowed down a little bit in round 4, I'm not surprised. He set a hell of a pace, came back out in round 5 and got it done. And he even showed a bit of counter-punching ability to time AJ as AJ was throwing. So confident in there, Dubois. And mentally, the job that his team have done on him, whether it was Dad, whether it was Don Charles, whoever you want to attribute it to, it doesn't matter. The job they've done on him mentally, he was absolutely on point in there. He was perfect for that fight. So what's next for Joshua? Retirement. What's next for Daniel Dubois? That's a really exciting question because the world is his oyster now, guys. And honestly, even if he lost his next fight, he's going to have a good career now. The next 8 years, you could say, of Daniel Dubois is going to be very exciting, potentially. So for me, I think I'd like to see Dubois. I don't think you need to throw him in there with Usyk Fury next. I mean, that fight is in 3 months, so you could put him in there with the winner if you wanted to and, try and reunify the division. It's probably the biggest fight to make. But, there's lots of other good fights to make. You could put him in there with a Parker. You could put him in there with a Zhang. You could put him in there with a Bakoli. There's so many fantastic fights you could make now for Daniel Dubois at heavyweight. And for the rest of his career now, he's going to be a cash cow because he's been a legit world champion. So fantastic to see. I'm super, super happy for the guy. His career's taken off. He's going to go to another level now. He was really fun to watch tonight as well. Super fan-friendly performance. Lots of knockdowns, lots of power, excitement. He's gone and he's shocked the world. He's grabbed it by the scruff of the neck. He's gone in there and he's written his own destiny. And it's just fantastic to see. I can't wait to see what the media's reaction is like. I can't wait to see what guys like Ade, what guys like Hatman say. I'll be interested to watch G-Man and see what he thinks. I keep in touch with all of these creators. I don't keep in touch with them. I don't speak to them, but I keep in touch on their opinions. Because for me, it kind of sense checks what I'm saying as well to see if I've got something wildly wrong or I've kind of got my own sort of what's the word? My own thought process hasn't been right. I do like to watch these other creators, and I'm super interested to see what these guys have made of the performance. But as I say, in summary, I think that Dubois was brilliant. I think that Josh was on the slide and on the decline. And I think now's the time to go because also, guys, like that's a fight that could potentially change you, and that takes a lot out of you. The only fight for Joshua, if they're going to make one, as this just popped into my head as I'm talking, the only fight for AJ, if you're going to make one, is that Deontay Wilder fight because perceptibly, they're both shot. They're both shot to bits. Both had big knockout losses. So if there's one fight you're going to make, it's a one and done fight. AJ against Wilder, who's more shot. I think either fighter could get very badly knocked out in that fight. I would like both of them to retire, but if you're going to make one, it is Joshua Wilder. I don't think there's any intrigue in Joshua Fury anymore. I think that Fury's probably, definitely declined far less than Joshua has, which I'm shocked to say. And, guys, look, there is an element also here, and I should be fair, that maybe AJ's been found out. I'm sure some people will be saying that. AJ actually was finished a while ago. But I think that his performances were good enough in those Usyk fights to say he was still there. But what I would say is the apprehension he's shown in fights, the reluctance to commit to power shots. Maybe his chin went a while ago. Maybe his punch resistance was much less a while ago. And I really thought that he got around that by counterpunching effectively, having that high guard. And, look, it is what it is, guys. He's got in there and he's lost tonight, but there are answer questions, and the only way we'd really know for sure is if he got back in the ring, but I don't want that. I want him to retire. But anyway, guys, this has been 6 things we learned. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've enjoyed the coverage of this fight in general, because I'm here to stay, guys. You know, this was a big fight week for me. Did some really good views, got lots of new subscribers, lots of great people in the conversation. So, guys, all I ask of you is please like this video, please subscribe to the channel, please get your thoughts in the comments section below. And as I always say, on to the next one.